Yes, indeed.
Why are you based in Switzerland?
Why am I based? Because it's fully decentralized, like blockchain. It has a peer-to-peer culture, and it speaks a lot of language. We have great ski resorts, cool people, and the Swiss franc has been rocking for the last 20 years, so we're getting richer day by day, which is awesome.
That's true. Now, for you, the audience, if you have a question, you can also ask. We're gonna switch the screen to Slido, BHere, and it's very simple. Basically, what you do is you just open your browser. No need to download any app. Slido.com, and that's it. And the hashtag is startupgrind. And you can ask away. I promise the top 5 questions will be answered, and which ones you will decide. Because you can vote for questions. Now, back to you. You have a background which is very international. It's probably the most international because you started at the United Nations.
That's correct.
What have you done there?
I think so. That was in my dreaming life when I was very young and I was still studying. And I wanted to do an internship and I wanted to say, how can we make the world better? And I worked for the United Nations Development Program in your home country, in Slovakia. And wow. The main thing, it was, how essentially could you implement the Millennium Goals back then, which was essentially how can you drive inequalities and decrease inequalities everywhere in the world? How can you make people empower women and different other milestones that essentially how can you improve the world? And I worked there for a few months, but then I realized that the goals were great, but the means were probably a little bit difficult to achieve, and I thought I would probably do something else.
Okay, and you left, and what have you started afterwards?
So I looked at myself and I tried to realize what was my main goal, what was my main drive, and what was my mission, what I wanted to do. And I quickly realized that I wanted to do something better, something stronger, that had to be done through technology and community. But the first thing I said is that if you need to do something, you have to look at different examples, and back then in the early 2000s, who was the main drivers was maybe Bill Gates, which was a very successful entrepreneur who moved into philanthropic, and same as Warren Buffett. So I said rather I should work in technology or in finance. So I chose the path to work in finance. Okay,
and you went into wealth management.
Yeah, so I went to wealth management, which was a lot of fun, working with wealthy people to make them wealthier, which was a great mission. I learned a lot, especially with private clients and family offices and others. You really learn how to in some way interact and some way how to think and how to optimize. But there was a lot of things lacking, which was mainly technology and something community driven.
Let's focus on that because I noticed that big entrepreneurs or smart entrepreneurs, they don't only focus on having fun, they notice when something is not working. And you say that technology wasn't working. What was wrong with the technology you were using?
Well, the first concept, you realize in a private bank back in, the late 2000s, it was that only few were able to get customized investment mandates, and only the very high ultra net worth individuals were able to get the best portfolios and the best investment ideas. And again, it was wealthier, getting always wealthier because they're getting better serviced. So I really quick realized is that if you bring in automation, you could definitely, bring in what you do to the best, you could do it to everyone. And I think so that was the main reason why I left the banking industry and I wanted to work for different hedge funds, which were mainly doing all the portfolio optimization through algorithms. And so from analyzing the stock market, doing portfolio management, and then obviously risk management, everything was automated. And I think, okay, that's the main thing, because if you reduce the middleman and all the different people within the investment team, then you could, essentially, cut down costs and produce something better.
Okay. When you're mentioning automation, you felt like you can only do it for the ultra wealthy people, or why did it not go all the way down to regular people investing?
In the financial world in general, besides from automation and just from getting from the financial world, it's it's a world where there's asymmetrical information and where we have jargons and fancy terms and different structures, you know, that enables a lot of people to get the best alpha. So that means the best, let's say, performance on the market. Yeah. And unfortunately, it's something where the end client usually doesn't really get the best service. And I realized that quite quickly, and I think so that was the main essence and the drive why I wanted to leave private banking, then why I wanted to leave as well the hedge fund industry to get into the more fintech space, where actually you could start developing B2C models and actually giving, you know, the best investment portfolios to them. Mm-hmm.
And so you decided to start SwissBorg. How would SwissBorg be different from the companies you worked at?
Yeah, so we started SwissBorg, I think so it was late 2015. Essentially what happened is that traveling a lot after a job and realized that, you know, you should do something about your life. I think everyone has that in their early 30s or late 30s. And after a few beers on a cocktail or this and that in Bangkok with my co-founder, we just realized that we should make something much better out of it. It turned out that we had different opinions on things first, so we both started we created our first different startups. So it was SwissBorg, and he said his own, and we started doing robo-advisor platforms, and we thought it was a great thing because you could eventually get into a space where you could be servicing B2C and doing the best for them. But actually, as you would mostly see all the different fintechs since 2000 to today, what they're always doing is that they're focusing on UI and UX, but behind PayPal or behind any robo-advisor, you still have the same mechanism, which actually there's not a huge disruption into that. And I think so that's the main reason why we realized that blockchain was the next endeavor, and that would change actually the back end of the whole fintech space.
Well, when you were building SwissBorg, was it always going to be a blockchain-based company or not yet at the beginning?
No, definitely not. You know, it was really like a robo-advisor, so Nutmeg, but I think so it was probably fancier. But it was similar to that, is how you could combine self-learning algorithms with investor choices and create a portfolio, a dynamic portfolio that would be managed. And the main issue we were facing, like most startups, is what? Is that first, you have your pilot, your MVP, you go to VCs and say, this is what I have, this is awesome. And a lot of VCs receive you after 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 different VC turns. You say, well, you have a great project, come back to us when you have more revenue. I'm like, okay. So then you go to see the end clients. We said B2C was impossible because the cost acquisition for B2C was way too high. Most of these guys get funded at an early stage, or a spin out from a big bank or something like that was not our case. So we started doing B2B, and most family offices, banks, and other things are like, okay, this is a great model. We think it's really forward thinking, automating all the portfolio management. Come when your guys are ready. And it was always like, so we are not getting funding, so we cannot bring in more developers. We cannot get end clients because they want to find a solution. So it was always the same spiral going on and on and on, and it didn't make any sense.
So you say that you were going after B2B, you tried to raise money, it was complicated, and then you decided to switch. What was the aha moment when you decided it's time to change?
The aha moment was really when the co-founder, we realized that behind Ethereum, the smart contract itself, so Ethereum is a blockchain. You have a lot of different protocols as blockchain. And Ethereum was, you know, I think so one of the main game changer we had in 2015 with Vitalik Buterin and his team when they created the ERC20 smart contract. And I think so we didn't get it in 2015, but we understood in 2016 what was the technology. And we really realized that blockchain itself, it could be used as a transaction, as a ledger. But further than that, it could be utilized for any industry. And for us, it was a great way, for example, to set up a token fund. And we could eventually create a lot of different token funds, and people could then, you know, have investment portfolios completely customized.
So basically taking the traditional business model of wealth management and making it ready for the new age, for the future. Was it hard for you to get customers' minds be ready, because money management is very conservative?
So was it hard to build a community out of it, or?
Was it hard to convince people that your idea is the right one?
Oh yeah, that's a funny one. Yeah, I mean, whenever you have an idea, 90% of people will say, yeah, he's a cool guy, he has a beard, he has long hair, he has a man bun, he doesn't wear a suit anymore, so whatever. He's just probably a cool other dude that's thinking about something that's never going to work. And everyone, I mean, maybe 5%, maybe my mom. But even my mom the other day, actually the other night, she was like, actually your idea was quite good. I never really understood it, but it worked out. So, I mean, most people will always laugh at you. And I think so, when you're in a startup mode, you have to dream, but you have to be as well, think about it. You have to know how much time you have until you could pay your rent. You have to work in an environment that you're living and working in the same place, and you have to have a lot of different steps. And I think so, the main drive we had is that we all come from a generation that's quite frustrated about the banking system. The banking system, I don't say banks are all robbers and they all try to steal us, but the thing is that they never had a great relationship with people because it's always about this asymmetrical information. Banks don't want to disclose, don't want to be transparent, and want to tell you that whatever they do is super complicated. But then you realize it's not that complicated, and you don't need to squeeze all the market value to just get only some drops and let the fruits for the main people. And I think so that was for us where we thought is that how can we create a bank of tomorrow where it's automated through smart contracts and algorithms, and you combine that with the most important, it's a community-centric philosophy where each community member has his voice. And I think so that was the main thing, because people at the end want to be heard. That's for us the most important. That's why everyone has Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all these social media. It's just people that want to get heard. They want their picture to be acknowledged. They want their accomplishment to be acknowledged. And even more when it gets to wealth. How is the best thing can you do?
It's a good idea, but in the sense of people want to be heard, with money management services like Nutmeg, you can choose how you want to invest your portfolio, right? So people have some kind of a voice there. But the problem is the trust. How do you, as a new kid on the block in this space, how do you build trust and convince people to let them invest in your mission and not regret it?
Yeah, I mean, trust is the main factor, and that's what blockchain is all about. At the end, it's a counting system that kicks ass, and it gives you trust. Whatever transaction is done is printed on a ledger. Everything that is driven through it is always community-centric. If you mine, for example, any type of crypto, then you eventually vote if they're going to have a fork, if it's going to be a split or not. And that should be pretty much similar to any other DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations such as ours. And that's how you build trust, by being completely transparent. That's what we're giving, for example, we'll be giving on all our portfolios, all our different transaction costs, performance costs, management costs. And going forward is that you bring in the voice of everyone. So, for example, in SwissBorg, we have our own token. It's called the CHSB token. And every month or so, we have referendums, and people will be voting on different choices of a referendum. At the end of the month, the next referendum we have is about, are we going to develop our dashboards such as a web interface, or is it going to be an app, iOS or Android? And that's something that's extremely important, is that you're making sure you're validating all your projects through your community, and then you're rewarding them. So everyone who votes in our system gets rewarded in tokens. And like that, you're really bringing in a real proof of meritocracy. And that's when people say, oh, these guys are actually trusting us over their business. How can we not trust them? And I think so that's it. It's not only about transparency. It's about listening and letting the chance of this crowdsourcing information, this swarm intelligence, to let them in some way give their voice and have control about their wealth.
Yeah. I like the idea of democracy and having people have a voice. When we had, about 2 years ago, the founder of Nutmeg, Nick Hungerford here, he was saying when they were starting, Nutmeg, who doesn't know Nutmeg, a wealth management app? Most of you know it. So Nutmeg is a company which is a startup, basically 7 years old or so. and they raised about £1 billion from the UK as a startup. And he said when they were starting, they were very cautious and careful and scared of the fact that people will want to be coming to the office to consult because they don't trust, you know, I'm going to give you my money, I want to talk to you first. And in about the first 5 years, they had one person coming into the office. So they managed to build the trust online. And that's an important part. For you, it's even more scary because the whole market is very volatile. And we have this question here from Pierre. Your ICO is one of the most successful top 10 so far. How did you position the ICO to counter the negative views of cryptocurrencies?
The negative views?
Views of cryptocurrencies.
I don't really get that. To counter the negative views. So there's one thing that you have to know, guys. If you want to buy any type of drugs, don't buy with crypto. It doesn't work well because everything goes on a ledger, and that's really true. So whatever drug you buy, if you do it, it's a stupid move. Don't just go to any guy and just give him some quids. I don't know. But so the negative
go
use,
to the pharmacy and buy them there. Yeah.
It's a very bad usage. And so, yeah, I mean, going forward, as blockchain evolves, everyone will have to go through KYC and AML, such as any other investment. So for example, if some of you guys, how many people participate in our ICO? Please raise your hand. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. So most of you went through KYC and AML, and your wallet has been approved by us. So we know which wallet it went. So eventually going forward, when you'll have an ID to your wallet, it's impossible to do bad transaction or dodgy transactions within the blockchain. It's probably the most transparent and most effective way to make sure that everything is on the ledger. So 4 or 5 years ago, when Silk Road happened and people were buying cocaine and whatsoever on the dark market, people actually got busted by the FBI. So getting back to the question,
or can you elaborate on the question? Shout it out.
Yeah, it's probably better if I spend that started. I guess my question is more related to that. You know, if you go out there and you say, I know that company is doing an ICO, a lot of people are going to say, well, aren't altcoins used for drugs, or aren't they all scams?
That's what you meant, okay.
yeah, so as I said, unfortunately, yeah, it's probably the cleanest money actually in the world. There's actually 2 different ones. I didn't say it, but there's 2 ones that are not printed on a ledger. So there may be 2 dodgy coins, and that is Monero and Zcash, which actually you could actually make transactions, but they're never printed on a ledger.
Okay.
So you wouldn't see the transaction. But for all other cryptos, all of them are always, every transaction that's done, it's on a ledger, and the ledger is immutable and it's undisturbable.
Yes.
So
I want to elaborate on this. The market is very volatile.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to do an ICO when the market is so extremely volatile. How did you cope with it?
So yeah, I mean, our ICO was probably actually our startup. How many people have watched the Silicon Valley show? It's a kick-ass show, right? So if you haven't checked it out, check it out. It's really funny. SwissBorg, same thing.
Okay.
We got exactly so.
So you're going to have a show now?
Yeah, I don't know, but at least it was very similar. We got into this startup, very pajama-driven, old dudes together in the same living room, and it moved out to be more successful. We got some money in and this and that, and then we had our up and down, and then our ICO happened, which it was the same day that CryptoKitties happened. And if you guys are familiar with CryptoKitties, it sounds really cool, but it fucked up the whole ICO in the beginning, which is the worst part, because ICOs happen in the beginning, the first day, and in the last day. If the first day doesn't happen well, like an IPO, you will suffer a lot. And we had CryptoKitties essentially is an application that had, you have kitties based on Ethereum, so it's like Pokemon, or Tamagotchis more, sorry. Okay. And on the blockchain, and then you feed them and do whatever. And people are getting so crazy about that is that most transactions on Ether, which is the main domination crypto for participating ICOs, we didn't get any of these transactions done. So our ICO really sucked in the beginning. And then for 3 weeks, nothing really happened. And then we spent a lot of time during Christmas and New Year's Eve to make sure that the right message was out, the right UX, the right partnerships were in, and then it picked on and it went.
Did you change the overall structure of what the ICO is going to be about, or this stayed the same? You just changed the messaging?
No, we just were hardcore onto how we pushed the message and how we made, we were much more data driven on the marketing side. We created great partnerships, travel around the world, and make sure that we would have a lot of video conferences.
Yeah.
So if you guys know, maybe less now, but every, twice a week, people could talk to me anytime and ask any questions. We do live all the time. I think so that's something people, how you build trust again.
Yeah.
And we do that in Japan as well. We do that, a bit everywhere we are. And I think so that was a one factor. And yeah, partnerships was another one. And the fact that, our community worked up at the end, which was great.
So your team is very international. You have people from many countries in your team. Your company is based in Switzerland, but it's not there when it comes to where you store the funds and so on. Can you elaborate on this? How do you structure the company today?
So if you believe in blockchain, you believe in decentralization. That's the main point, the main factor. And as well as that, during our ICO, which had over 24,000 people that have participated, which is quite a good number.
Congrats, yeah.
And over 100 countries, you have to be decentralized to make sure that you're closer to your community as well. So what we've done is that we're based in Lausanne, the French Swiss part. That's pretty much doing the technology. We have, training facilities out of Gibraltar. We'll probably have one here in London too. A marketing team that we'll be developing very soon. Marketing and support, so anyone who's interested in those roles, we'll be recruiting. We are recruiting. Then we have a big team in Japan that's mostly concentrating on payments and cryptocurrency exchange. We have the Paris team is on asset tokenization, and a lot of R&D is done out of Switzerland, but especially out of Toronto as well. So we think that every of our different location has its own purpose, and obviously has a legal case attached to it.
You also mentioned Mauritius.
Yeah.
What's happening there for your company?
So Mauritius Island, it's a very nice island for vacation and for, as well, weirdly, for banking. And it happened to be...
I had no idea.
It happened to be, because everyone heard about BVI and Cayman Islands, and Mauritius Island became a bigger and bigger hub because I think so there's a lot of talented people over there that are actually local people. And second thing is that, it became more and more a big banking platform. And one of our main investor, which is Warwick Private Bank, they have a private bank over there. And we're very happy to have them as, as first investors. And the thing is that Mauritius Islands is very friendly, crypto friendly. So for us was a great move. And as of today, it's the only bank account we have because all other bank accounts got shut down. So anyways, we had to work.
They got shut down. That's crazy.
Yeah, so as of today, unfortunately, most bank accounts, corporate bank accounts, don't want to work with the crypto guys. So I always say we're like, a little bit like spoiled brats from the ghetto that unfortunately don't have a home for it. But Mauritius Islands is something that are quite friendly, and we're really looking forward to get different licenses and build a bigger team as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you also have a fan there, the Prime Minister, right?
Yeah, I mean, not us directly, but our investors. Yeah, they're very close to the government, which has a very clear mandate about how to implement the next era of fund management and as well banking. And I think so. He understood very well that the digitalization is a big thing. Yeah. And if you talk about digitalization, you have to talk about blockchain because that's digitalization.
I agree. Now, what you're saying is interesting from multiple perspectives. What's interesting to me is that economies who invest in blockchain and who see the future are kind of unusual, not very traditional. There are countries like Estonia, you mentioned Gibraltar, you mentioned Mauritius. There is now Latvia who is pushing it a lot, and Lithuania. We have a question here from DW. How do you think the regulators will approach ICOs, particularly given the perceived lack of transparency and protection for the retail investors?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think so. Like the FINMA, which is the market authorities of Switzerland, Mass Market Authority, Market Authority of Singapore has already pronounced them. ESMA, which is the European one, has pronounced the guidelines as well. And you know, it depends how you classify your token. If it's a utility token, then it's quite open-minded. If it's crypto assets, which has actually a physical share or distributes revenues or dividends to it, it could be considered as a security. In that case, you have to file for a security license, which is more complicated. If it's a protocol, it could be used as a foundation or rules. It could be something easier. If it's only for payments, then it has a different other. So following the nature of your business and the token economics behind it, then you have different guidelines how you could do your ICO, how could you distribute your tokens to your investor base or your community, and going forward, it's going to be more and more regulated, and it's a crowdier and crowdier space, and you know, I think so. There's less than 5% of ICOs that actually reach their hard cap, so it's definitely not an easy business. Everyone thinks so. It's super easy. It's definitely not, and it's getting more and more, regulated, which is a great thing. I mean, if it's getting regulated, that means people acknowledge it as an asset class and it's a real tangible business. And going forward, I think so what's going to happen is that you'll have platforms of ICOs and they'll take over pretty much, you know, the classification, they'll work with market authorities, and then they'll tell you how to market it, or they'll do the marketing for you directly.
How do you work with the regulator in Switzerland?
So the FINMA in Switzerland, essentially, they have like different consulting groups that work with our lawyers directly. And, you know, it's case by case, but right now it's quite a hard space for them because they're, I think, one of the front runners in the world, one of the first pioneers of talking about and regulating ICOs, but on the same time, they are having like thousands of demands every day. So for them, it's very hard, I think so, to answer every question.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're very open-minded to crypto and blockchain in general. They just want to make sure that everything is done in a very legit way where you have KYC and AML, and you make sure that your distribution of your token is clear and people understand what they're buying.
Yeah. Now let's dig into your ICO. You mentioned that the first 3 weeks were basically nothing was happening. Then you changed the messaging. And what were the moments where you started to feel something is going on here, something is taking off?
When we popped the champagne bottle on December 31st. And actually, that's true.
Okay.
On December 31st, I don't know, we gave like a 10% rebate on it. And, you know, we were very active in Telegram and active in all the social medias. And it just kicked in, just December 31st. I don't know, maybe people received a lot of Ether for Christmas. I don't know what happened, or Bitcoins. But the market as well, because we were in a rising market. So December was a very hot rising market when Bitcoin went from, I think so, 10 to 20. And Ether went from whatever it was, from to 2,000, I think so. So while this was picking up, people were not so interested by participant ICOs, but on holding their own crypto. So I think so that was another drive factor as well. And then it clicked in on December 31st. And then day by day, it was going, I mean, it was going nuts. It was going the second day, then we got a bit more, like 800, then 1 million, and 3 million, then went exponential. And then on January 7th, we got like 13 million within the day, and we closed the hard cap. We touched the hard cap.
You got the momentum and you were using it. Now, when you look back, what were the key parts why the ICO was successful? What would you see as the key success factors?
First, you have to understand where's the pain. And everyone has a pain, everyone has a frustration on what he wants to do and how he can achieve it. And I think so most people who invest in crypto is not only about I mean, people invest in crypto most probably are there for the asset class or the technology if you're a dev. But I think so the philosophy factor within our project is why the people to regain control of their wealth is something that really makes a lot of sense. And I think so if you tackle the right message, you offer the right technology in a very transparent way, I think so that's where you build on a community. And with us, we were very strong on building a big community out of it.
Yeah. And you started the ICO, it took about 9 months to build?
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
And when it comes to community, how did you build the community from day one?
Mainly doing all these meetups. I think so we had like meetups everywhere in the world. Yeah, we had like 12 meetups everywhere in the world. Very, very active in Asia, very active, a little bit less in UK, unfortunately, but we still had a lot of gigs here. And I think so talking to people, meeting people, trying to explain what we're doing, understanding them as well. So when we did our white paper, that was very well, not everyone read it, but the people who read it, they really loved it. But we got a lot of feedback as well, and we did change a lot of it.
How do you make people read your white paper? I'm sure there are many of them out there.
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't know. Back then, there was not so many white papers.
Okay.
So I think so in May, we're not so many dudes that had white papers. And we wrote our white paper with our sweat. So that's something different as well. And people could realize it because we made a lot of misspelling in it. And they realized, it was really personal what we're doing. And I think so they got a grasp out of it. And then, we translated in a lot of different languages. And our team, a lot of people spoke, Japanese, Korean, Russian, all different languages, German, French, and other languages. So I think so that helped a lot as well.
So you're saying that you had listened to your community, and you also mentioned earlier that you have a big community in Japan.
Yep.
What are the biggest hotspots of your community today?
Who's the
biggest hotspots?
Yeah, I think so. In general, Asia is a huge community. Japan is a big one. Korea is a big one. China is a huge community, not on our favor for the time being, because we didn't want to market it in China. But I think so. China will be very big. These guys only pay by WeChat, so they definitely get into crypto. And the biggest miners over there.
Do you plan to integrate in WeChat or have an
we talked to WeChat. We'll go meet them soon. Yeah, hopefully.
Okay.
And then in Europe, the biggest community we have actually is in Switzerland and UK.
And this community is mostly crypto-based community, or you also engage traditional investors?
Yeah, I think so. That was something quite different. I think so. Usually, a lot of crypto guys, ICOs, it's crypto to crypto. I think so. Something was a bit different is that as we played a lot about our own pedigree and how our banking background or hedge fund background or whatever background, we had already a substantial network, and it still represented like roughly 10 million that we raised was actually off-chain investors.
Yeah.
So obviously, 80% was driven through crypto guys, but we still had 20% that was regular high net worth individuals, and off-chain, we call them investors.
We have a question here from Natalie on this subject. How do you engage traditional investors to invest in crypto and overcome their fears about it?
Ooh, so that's a long process. But then I think so, first you have to understand the technology. Besides talking about the 33x that people have done last year on their portfolios, which is, when you think about 33x, is completely stupid. Never you see that in a different asset class in the world. And that's why, last 2 months there has a massive correction. If you understand the technology, you quickly realize that this great network that enables you to do peer-to-peer transactions on this ledger could only be the future of most banking or payments solutions. But more importantly, when you start thinking a little bit further down through Ethereum or the new protocols that people are building, you quickly realize that everything could be automated on smart contracts. Pretty much everything. And then you realize that this new way of doing transactions is the future of pretty much every industry. And every fintech or most industries will definitely get disrupted through blockchain. And why? Because people could automate decisions and therefore build a trustful network. And based on that, I think so that's something that people start understanding. And when you start to say that, they're still confused. So the next step is to tell you, okay, how many countries in the world have legit national currencies? Maybe we have 5 or 6 of them. That means that the other 190 countries in the world, sorry for my French, they really have a shitty currency, okay? Second, they have a government they're not always very trusted with it. Third thing is that they cannot all move their assets from A to B in a legal way. For when you give your money to a bank, do you really own your money? No, you don't. You actually own the right to withdraw it if you want, but that's only if the bank lets you. So based on those 4 factors, you realize quite quickly if you have a decentralized banking system, then it brings more trusts, it brings more confidence in everyone, and then people could really actually own their own assets. And if the people still don't believe that, then you say, well, tokens right now are at this stage, but in 2 years from now, everything will be tokenized.
Yeah.
Gold's already tokenized, diamond is tokenized, we're tokenizing paintings. WeWork will probably tokenize their own facilities one day, and you will see the emergence of new asset classes, and that will all go through the blockchain ecosystem.
Okay. Now, when it comes to your fund or to your company, you say SwissBorg is a crypto wealth management.
Yep.
Which asset classes do you want to focus on?
So we consider crypto as 3 or 4 different asset classes. Mm-hmm. So the main one, as you guys know, is the coins, because everyone heard about Bitcoin, yeah. Right? Bitcoin, Litecoin, Monero, and all the different cryptos, currencies that are able to do transactions, and it's rather for payment purposes or storage of wealth, like Bitcoin. Like it's like essential, in some ways, a digital gold. Then the second asset class that we look at is protocols. And protocols, you have to think about protocols really like Google Apps or like as iOS platform. Uh-huh. And those protocols are like Ethereum, it's like Cardano, it's like Neo, and all of these different protocols, you could build different apps on it. These different apps are called utility tokens, such as ours. That's why we have Ethereum here. So we use the protocol of Ethereum and we build an app, and that token itself is a utility token and has a usage in the network that you have. And last, what you have is asset-backed tokens. So those ones clearly have like gold or diamond, has physical attachment to something.
Yeah.
So we invest across those different 4 asset classes, obviously, and we invested on different strategies. So buy and hold, but we short the market to futures. Mm-hmm. We do arbitrage, we do algo trading. Okay. We do a lot of different strategies that we think is the best way to diversify your portfolios.
Yeah. Now, we discussed your ICO, we discussed your building community is very important for you. Now, when it comes to promotion, how hard was it for you to get the scale? Let's discuss first promotion in terms of press presence.
The press is always quite funny, the relationship you have with them. Because first they're always like, yeah, I love crypto, that's really cool. And then you talk to them for an hour and a half, they take all the notes and say, so are you going to write something? No, it's more just for just knowledge.
Oh, really?
Oh, thank you. Just spending 1 hour and a half just talking, yeah. So the press in general, I think we're very open. The fact we're in Switzerland, that there's not so many ICOs in Switzerland that are based in Switzerland. The fact that we're attacking the wealth management industry and making democratic out of it. I don't think so, so many people dare to attack to that business and that industry. So in general, all the press was very responsive. We had some help as well from some PR agencies that helped us. And in general, it was quite good.
Was it hard for you to convince a journalist to write a story about you, to cover you in the
I mean, I don't think you could convince a journalist at the end because he does whatever he wants. And if you convince him, he's probably just going to take out the 2 words you said that you didn't really mean.
You can help him find a story about the company, right?
But no, I mean, some people came to us organically and some people did not. So we had some press. We're not that successful in the press. Uh-huh. And that's another thing. Regarding the press from this industry, there's a lot of blackmailing type of contracts that we didn't go for. A lot. I wouldn't tell which ones, but this business has been such a hot spot that there's just like bloggers or these dodgy newspapers that wants like 2 or 3 Bitcoin just for a lousy article that we didn't want to push through. Same for these different reviews for your ICO, for studying, you have to pay them. There's a lot of phony business within that industry, and And that's a pretty sad thing, but it makes sense. You know, there's quick money to be made, and even if the philosophy behind blockchain is amazing, you always have those short-term gainers that want to unfortunately take a lot of money and leave with a lot of money.
It's a new gold fever. Now, have you paid any advisors, any people for their help in your ICO, and who were they?
Yeah, I mean, we you know, again, a lot of people came to us, I think so, within the community, and came to help us. Some people wanted to provide us more guidance, and therefore, you know, we were very happy to work with different advisors. Some of them really helped us, other them not really.
How do you tell the good ones from the bad ones?
The good ones, the people who called you often, email you, and you know, talk about you, and you know, just you could feel it quite quickly, especially if you're in a decentralized team. You know, you don't see people around, but if people start to talk, you know, help you out, advise you on different things, put you in the right network. Whenever you're having something, they try to advise you doing this or that. You feel if they're implicated or not. And that's how we really evaluated the...
Yes. What is the best way to pay for an advisor, for good advice? Is it in terms of percentage of the ICO, or it's just a fixed amount?
I mean, it depends what they do exactly, I think. So it has to be case by case. In general, we get a fixed amount of tokens out of a year, and if they spend the whole year working with us, well, then they'll have a fixed amount of tokens. And that could go from, you know, 0.1% of total tokens up to 1% following the ICOs. And following what's the involvement of the person.
Okay. Now, for the audience, how many of you are in the process of doing a fundraise or thinking about it or doing an ICO? Raise your hand. Oh, quite a few. Okay. Would you advise doing an ICO for a technology startup?
So we went through 3 phases of ICOs. Or we went to 2 phases of ICOs, put it that way. Now we're getting to the 3rd one. The first phase was, hey dude, I have a white paper, I have a website, what's up? It's cool. You get 1 million, 2 million, which is now probably worth 5 or 10 or 20 million if the guys kept it in Ether.
Okay.
Then we went to the second phase is that, okay, I'm from this industry, I have an MVP or not, but I started to have quite a good community out of it, and a lot of people listen to me, so you guys should probably invest into us, and we'll develop something that is really good. And now we're getting to the 3rd phase, which is, okay, I have a running business. This is great business. We have a shitload of a massive community already using our product. And now we want to make something bigger and utilize our network out of it and help you guys by helping us participate in our ICO. And you see that with Telegram, you see that with Coin Poker, and there's a lot of different other ICOs that they already have a working product, they already have a community, they have something great, but they want to go to the next extent. They don't want to go for an IPO, and they want to go within the community, and I think so these are the ones who are going to be very successful by raising a lot of assets. I'm not saying they'll be successful tomorrow as products, but they'll be very successful in raising assets.
Okay, now we have a question on Slido which is suggesting that you raise your ICO on top of a hype. Do you feel this way, or?
Completely, yeah. I mean, there's definitely a hype. I mean, we're in a bubble, right?
Is it still happening, or it's going down?
Yeah, no, I think so now. It's a good period right now too, because you know the market has done lousy recently, so people are quite panicked. So it's not the worst, it's not the best moment, it's not the worst moment. But I think so there's definitely a bubble effect. You know, a lot of different DAOs, blockchain and cryptos will die. But we still have a lot of room before that bubble will burst. You know, we're still only on that 370 billion market cap, which is much smaller than Facebook itself. So you still have a lot of room to grow. But eventually, yeah, most of the cryptos will eventually die.
Yes, so
but you'll have the Amazons, you'll have the Google, you'll have those amazing startups, which will most probably take over the industry or take over a big part of it.
yes, so your answer to Pierre, who asks, you talk about funding issues for startups. You performed your ICO at the top of the hype. Is it still possible? And if so, how different is it now? So you're still saying it's a hype?
Yeah, there's definitely a hype. The fear of missing out, it's a big thing. You know, and people saying, oh, but you guys don't have revenues. I'm like, yeah, does Snapchat have revenue? No, you participated in the IPO 3 months ago, so and it's still worth 20 billion market cap. So you know, if you have a huge community that provides huge data set, you know, it's still a very valuable company. Did WhatsApp make any money on their app? I mean, it was $1 back then. They didn't make money, right?
Yeah.
But they still sold it 17 billion to Facebook. And
19,
when I was in the trading room back then, when I heard that news, I'm like, oh, guys, we should buy Facebook. We already had it. We should increase our position on Facebook. And all the older traders are like, what do you mean? This is the worst thing ever. WhatsApp, it sucks. I'm like, dude, it has 800 million users on it. And that's why Facebook is such a big market cap today. Because when you have the data and you have the users, then essentially you can monetize that.
Yeah.
And with blockchain, you would monetize even further down because you could tokenize whatever happens.
Yeah, it's true. We actually hosted Jan, the founder of WhatsApp, last year. And he came very early. When he was 16, he came to the US from the Ukraine. And his mom was got cancer, and she died. And he was not having a good time, so he was basically living off of food stamps back then. Then he learned how to code. He went to Yahoo. Then he wanted to work for Facebook. Facebook didn't want him.
Yeah, I remember that.
So he went and built WhatsApp and sold WhatsApp for 19 billion to Facebook.
19, yeah.
And the story behind that is that he made Sequoia, the big investor, and the Facebook guys to go with him to the house where he used to collect the food stamps, and they actually signed the contract there. It's a cool story from Jan. Now, let's wrap it up about what is the vision for you, for SwissBorg? How big do you see this company?
Yeah, I mean, as we were building SwissBorg, and a lot of people always say, again, where did it come from? It came from as well another frustration that I had, not only working for different banks, but as well when I got to France from the States and I was not able to download or watch great movies, I got onto the first peer-to-peer digital exchange, which back then was Napster for music, right? And then we had Emule and other different torrents. And I think so it's through this sort of liberalism, utopic philosophy that a lot of hackers or downloaders got to say, okay, this is it. This is the free spirit where eventually you could have whatever you want and you could build something out of it. And I think so at SwissBorg, the essence is not exactly that, because we're not wild cowboys at all. We're still, I mean, I would say legit people that had a great career in different industries, but mainly in the financial industries. But we want to make sure that this wealth management platform is controlled by our community. And going forward, you know, as we're building it, we really want to make it decentralized and autonomous, because that's the end goal of any different DAOs. And the bigger goal is that very soon we'll be offering different investment themes that people could bring in their wallet, and they could have a portfolio of crypto assets completely customized. We'll have payment solutions that will go from crypto to fiat and fiat to crypto with exchange behind it. We'll do asset tokenization as well out of the SwissBorg France. The crypto to payment was through Japan. So we have different entities that will do different things. And essentially, you know, we're really building a decentralized banking system based on a meritocratic system.
Okay. Now, what is the best way for the audience to keep in touch with you?
Anyone could, you know, if you guys have Telegram, Cyrus, Fazel, you could Telegram me. I will maybe not answer within a few seconds, but I'll make my best. If not, Cyrus@SwissBorg.com, that's my email. And LinkedIn, that's a hard one. I really get a lot of LinkedIn requests, but please add me on LinkedIn and I'll do my best to answer.
And as you heard, SwissBorg is opening an office in the UK, and you're looking for what kind of people?
Yeah, we're looking for a head of marketing. Essentially, that person could take over that role. We already have marketers in our team, but we want a head of marketing. We'll develop a team after. So like a designer, we'll look for, you know, social media planner as well. And then the support, because we're migrating all our social media to a central version where essentially people will have a forum, you'll have access to different, you know, channels, and it'll be rewarded through gamification and tokens. And we're building this process, but for the time being, we'd like to have a head of support that'll be managing this project with the dev team that we already have.
Yeah, so this is the end of the first part of this talk. We're going to have a second part. It's going to take a few minutes. So thank you so much, Cyrus, for this. Please join me in welcoming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, on the second part of this talk, we're going to bring somebody else here. And I still want to have Cyrus ask a question or two on this topic, because we're going to be talking about the legal side. So David, please come and join us. This is David Wilby. David is a partner at a law firm which works on